Hello guys and welcome to another UPE Python tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about Dunder methods. So Dunder methods are just special methods for classes. They're kind of like default methods. Um, so they're methods that work under the hood, and they're denoted by this double underscore on each side of the method name. So let me just explain what kind of under the hood means. It means they're implicitly called for the most part, not explicitly called. Like if I wanted to use this method apply raise on an employee object, I would do employee.apply raise. But in terms for these methods, you don't really explicitly call them. And let me show you what that means. So I initiated two different employee classes. I got one for Michael Scott and then one for Jim Halpert. So we're going to look at our Dunder Mifflin methods for all you Office fans out there.
Out of paper, out of stock. There's friendly faces around the block. Break loose from the chains that are causing you pain. Call Michael and Stanley, Jim, Dwight, Creed. Call Anthony and Kelly for your business paper needs. Dunder Mifflin, people, persons, paper, people. Dunder Mifflin, the people, persons,
Time out.
And see how those work. So let's say I wanted to print out one of these objects. So let's say I wanted to print out employee underscore one. Let's try and print out Michael. Let's see what happens. Oh, sorry. So let me just comment all of these out real quick. All right, so we have our Dunder init. Yep, perfect. All right, so we printed out our employee object, but look at what it printed out. It printed out this weird, funny looking string that says employee object at something, something, something. This is just a pointer to the employee object. You don't really need to know the importance of it right now for our purposes, but you see that when you try and print this employee object, this Michael Scott, it just prints out this weird string. So let's say I wanted to print out the employee, but I wanted to just like print out his name or something like that. So what I could do is use this dunder str method, and that'll work under the hood basically and actually print out a physical name for this employee object. Let me show you what happens when I implement this dunder method. All right, so let's see. All right. So I'm going to use some string formatting. All right. Okay, so what I'm saying is whenever we print out an employee object, I want it to return the full name dash the email of the employee. Every time we print an employee object, we want it to print that. That's what this Dunder str does. It's implicitly called. It's called whenever you want to print the object. It's like representing the object. So instead of printing this weird looking string thing that really doesn't help us in our purposes, it should print this nice format that I have right here. So let's try and work that out. All right, so if I call print again, see what it does. See, we got Michael Scott and we have his email. So this is going to actually tell us some information about the object and what it's represented by. So it's a lot better. See how I didn't explicitly call it? You can actually explicitly call it if you wanted to. You could do print employee dot dunder str dunder. It's just in practice you don't really want to do that. These kind of just work under the hood, but I mean you could definitely do that. It's still a method. So you see, it does the same thing. But in practice, you just use whenever you call print on the object, it's going to use that Dunder str to print the object. All right. So What else do we got? So we implemented that. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the Dunder Add method. So let's say I wanted to add these two employees. So let's see. Actually, before that, let me just show you how these Dunder methods work on regular objects that you've seen throughout your entire time working with Python. So let's say I want to do print 1 plus 3. So technically, 1 is an int object, and 3 is also an int object. So I'm adding two objects together. You get 4. Okay. So what's happening here is that it's using the int Dunder Add method to add these two together. And actually, let me show you how that's actually working. So I could do print 1 plus 3, or I could do int dot Dunder Add Dunder, and then call 1, comma 3. And then it should spit out the same thing. Perfect. So it spits out 4. So when you think about this, everything in Python is an instance of some sort of class. Like you have a list class, you have int class, you have a string class, and all these classes have Dunder methods that are implicitly called whenever you do something, like adding or printing or checking the length of something. So just keep that in mind. Everything is an object. It's an instance of some sort of class. So it's really object-oriented in that sense. But you also have the versatility of it being a scripting language as well, so you don't really have to think about these things. But I just want you to keep that in mind. Now, let's say we wanted to add our two employees. Let's see what would happen right now without that Dunder method. So I want to add Jim and Michael Scott. Let's see what happens. Actually, underscore. All right. See, we get an error. It has no idea how to add these two objects together. It's trying to add both of their pointers in some way, or it just has no idea how to do it because it's not defined in the Dunder Add method. That's what it's looking. It's looking for a Dunder Add method to add these together, and it's not defined, and then it just has no idea what it's doing or how to add these things. So that's why we have to actually define a Dunder Add method in order to add these two things. So let's see. So we do return self dot pay plus other dot pay. So this is our Dunder add. So we have self, which is the current object right here, and we have the other, which is this object right here. And we want to just add their pays together, and that's how we're going to add these two employee objects. So now we have that defined. Let's just see what happens. All right. All right, so it added both of their pays together. So now there's no error. It knows how to add both of these objects together. So we're home free right now for now. So yeah, that's pretty much everything that you got to do with the Dunder Add method. Okay, so we have that functionality. Now, let's say I wanted to print the length of one of these employee objects. Actually, let me show you what it does. I mean, you all obviously probably know about the len function. It just prints the length of a string, or you can use it on other objects as well, but mostly you see it with strings. So it'll just print the number of characters in the string. Also use it for lists as well and print the number of elements in the list. So, but let's just use it on a string. So just see its functionality. All right. So I have the length of word, should just return 4, returns 4. Awesome. You can also, so strings also, so this word object, it's an object. It's a part of the string class. And every string class has a dunder len method. So I can explicitly call this this method. Or actually, no, sorry, it would be str. That's the, so if you're ever unsure of what class this belongs under, you could do print type of word. You can always do that. You see, it belongs to this class str. So it's part of the str class, the string class. So I can do str to explicitly call it. I can do str dunder len dunder, and then I'll pass word to it. And then it should behave the same way as this. It's just this, in practice, you really never want to do this. There might be some special cases where you do it just to test stuff out, but in practice, they're kind of implicitly called using these various functions. All right, so run it, and then it should print the same thing. So we got 4, 4. It's just two ways of calling it. But I just want to show you that these Dunder methods are baked into everything that you see in Python. So, all right, so let's try and print the length of Michael. See what happens. So we get a type error. So employee has no len because it's looking for this Dunder method. It's not explicitly defined. So it has no idea what to display when you call len on that object. So what we can do is define the Dunder len, and we'll put return len of the object's full name. Now, run it again. All right, so we have 13. So it just returns the len of Michael Scott, the full name. So we have 13. So now we have a way of using len, adding these two objects and displaying these objects using the print function. So all I want you to get is that these Dunder methods, they just work under the hood, and you might have to explicitly define these for the classes and objects that you build. Just keep that in mind. And actually, I don't think I talked about Dunder init. So this is baked into every class that you make. Whenever you create an instance of a class, an object, this Dunder init is automatically ran. So whenever I do employee1 equals employee, and then I pass these arguments to it, it runs this Dunder init method to instantiate the object, the employee object. So I guess that's pretty much it. I hope you guys learned about Dunder methods and kind of understand their function and how they're like kind of baked into every Python object that you look at. And thank you.